Hello and welcome to Indus News Live from Islamabad. I am Hira Mustafa and these are the headlines. In Pakistan, security forces have killed a TTP terrorist in an operation in North Waziristan. The military's media wing said the terrorist was involved in attacks on security forces and targets killings. In the United Kingdom, the medicines regulator says 7 people have died from unusual blood clots after getting the Oxford-AstraZeneca vaccine. Amid rising concerns, Germany, France, the Netherlands and Canada have restricted the vaccine's use. Italy has entered a strict 3-day lockdown in a bid to prevent a surge in cases over Easter. Here in Pakistan, the virus has infected more than 4,000 people and claimed 84 lives overnight. The global number of infections has surpassed 130 million, with the death toll crossing over 2.8 million. In Myanmar, 5 people have been killed after security forces opened fire on pro-democracy protesters. People have taken to the streets again despite more than 550 deaths since the February 1st coup. Meanwhile, the ruling military has intensified its crackdown on dissent by blocking internet services. The US, Japan and South Korea have agreed to keep up pressure on North Korea to abandon its nuclear and ballistic missile programs. The national security advisors of the 3 countries issued a joint statement after high-level security talks in Maryland. They reaffirmed their commitment to denuclearization through trilateral cooperation. Iran has rejected any step-by-step lifting of US sanctions imposed against it. A foreign ministry spokesperson says the definitive policy for Tehran is the lifting of all curbs at once. Well, these were the headlines. News in detail coming after the short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. Now the news in detail. In Pakistan, security forces have killed a TTP terrorist in an operation in North Waziristan. According to the military's media wing, the operation was conducted on reports of terrorist presence in the area. It said the militant was involved in attacks on security forces and incidents of extortions and target killings. In the United Kingdom, the medicines regulator says 7 people have died from unusual blood clots after getting the Oxford-AstraZeneca vaccine. In total, 30 people out of 18 million vaccinated by the 24th of March had these clots. It is still not clear if they are just a coincidence or a genuine side effect of the vaccine. Unusual blood clots due to the Oxford-AstraZeneca vaccine have raised suspicions, but the World Health Organization says its benefits continue to outweigh any risk. However, Germany, France, the Netherlands and Canada have restricted the vaccine's use amid rising concerns. But Australia said it will continue AstraZeneca vaccination despite blood clotting cases. The country launched mass vaccinations for its people in February, with most expected to receive the AstraZeneca vaccine. Meanwhile, Italy has entered a strict 3-day lockdown in a bid to prevent a surge in cases over Easter. In Russia, over 9,000 cases have been recorded, while the death toll has climbed to 100,000 after 380 repeat. In Russia, over 9,000 cases have been recorded, while the death toll has climbed to 100,000 after 384 fatalities overnight. Globally, the number of infections has surpassed 130 million, with the death toll over 2.8 million. Pakistan has reported another 84 deaths from COVID-19 in the past 24 hours. The Health Ministry said the death toll is approaching 14,700. The ministry said more than 4,700 people tested positive for the virus in the last 24 hours. Pakistan has reported nearly 683,000 infections since the pandemic began, out of which more than 609,000 people have recovered. The number of active cases in the country has crossed 58,000. Officials said nearly 3,500 people are in critical condition across the country, whereas the coronavirus positivity ratio has decreased to 9.41%. Meanwhile, in a letter, Chinese President Xi Jinping said his country will always stand with Pakistan in its fight against the pandemic. In India, farmer leader Rakesh Tikait has blamed Prime Minister Modi's party for the attack on his convoy in Rajasthan. A day earlier, a mob used batons and pelted stones at Tikait's procession, damaging the rear windshield of his car. In a statement, the leader said the culprit belongs to the youth wing of BJP. Congress leader Rahul Gandhi also slammed the BJP on Twitter. He said the farmers' movement will not end until the anti-national farm laws are repealed. Meanwhile, the farmer body has announced to block highways on April 10th and then march to the parliament in May. So far, nearly 250 growers have died in the ongoing protest against the centre's contentious laws. In Myanmar, security forces have killed another 4 pro-democracy protesters. People have taken to the streets again, despite more than 550 deaths since the February 1st coup. Protesters gathered against the military in the southern city of Davi and elsewhere. Meanwhile, the ruling military has intensified its crackdown on dissent by blocking internet services. Authorities have issued warrants for another 18 people, including celebrities and journalists, for online posts. Meanwhile, China has urged dialogue between all parties in Myanmar and non-interference in the country's internal affairs. The US, Japan and South Korea have agreed to keep a pressure on North Korea to abandon its nuclear programs. The national security advisors of the 3 countries issued a joint statement after high-level security talks in Maryland. They stressed the need for full implementation of UN Security Council resolutions on North Korea. The counterparts also agreed to strengthen deterrence and maintain peace on the Korean peninsula. Meanwhile, China and South Korea have also vowed to cooperate on North Korea after their top diplomats met in Xiamen. The meeting comes as Seoul seeks to find a balance in its relationship with Washington and Beijing. The United States has lifted sanctions on International Criminal Court prosecutor Fatou Bensouda. The former Trump administration imposed the curbs on Bensouda over her probe into U.S. war crimes in Afghanistan. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken termed the sanctions inappropriate and ineffective. In a statement, Blinken said the State Department has also terminated visa restrictions on certain ICC personnel. He said the U.S. continues to disagree with the body's actions relating to Afghanistan and Palestinian situations. However, Blinken added U.S. concerns will be better addressed through engagement with the ICC. Meanwhile, a spokesperson for the ICC said the court welcomes Washington's move. The U.S. has reaffirmed its support for Kyiv amid reports of a large Russian military buildup near eastern Ukraine. This came as President Joe Biden held telephone talks with his Ukrainian counterpart Volodymyr Zelensky. Biden said the U.S. will continue backing Ukraine's sovereignty in Donbas and Crimea. According to Zelensky's chief of staff, Biden said Ukraine will never be left alone against Russia's aggression. Western nations and NATO have voiced concern over Russian troop movements near Ukraine's eastern Donbas region. Earlier, Russia warned NATO against deploying troops to Ukraine, saying the move will escalate tensions. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken has called on Israel to ensure equal treatment of Palestinians. Blinken spoke on the phone with Israeli Foreign Minister Gabi Ashkenazi. The State Department says Blinken asserted that Israelis and Palestinians should enjoy equal measures of security and democracy. A statement read that the two leaders discussed humanitarian assistance to the Palestinian people. It said the two also spoke about Israel's normalization of ties with Arab countries. Blinken has also discussed Tel Aviv's ties with Manama in a phone call with his Bahraini counterpart. The two mulled over ways to capitalize on progress made at U.S.-Bahrain strategic dialogue in December. The U.S. has reiterated calls for Iran to release all American citizens detained in the country. A State Department spokesperson says unjust detentions for political gain must cease immediately. In a press briefing, Jelena Porter said the safe return of those detained in Iran or elsewhere is a top priority for Washington. She called on the Iranian government to also immediately and safely release a British citizen detained in Tehran. Porter's commands come as the U.S. and Iran are set to hold indirect talks in Vienna from Tuesday. Iran has rejected any step-by-step lifting of U.S. sanctions imposed against it. A Foreign Ministry spokesperson says the definitive policy for Tehran is the lifting of all curbs at once. In an interview, Saeed Khatibzadeh said these include the sanctions the previous U.S. administration reimposed and the ones they initiated. His remarks come as the U.S. and Iran are set to hold indirect talks in Vienna from Tuesday to discuss the 2015 nuclear deal. British, German, French, Chinese and Russian officials will engage in shuttle diplomacy between Tehran and Washington. China has rejected EU's allegations of harassing foreign correspondents and driving them out of the country. This comes after Brussels said John Sudworth was harassed and blocked from working in China. In a statement, the Chinese mission to the European Union said Sudworth worked and lived in China for 9 years. It said if Sudworth did not spread disinformation, there is no need for him to worry about litigation. The representative said Beijing protects the safety of foreign nationals in China per law. However, Beijing said it rejects prejudice against China and disinformation in the name of free press. Taiwan says European countries are helping with Taipei's indigenous submarine project. In a rare admission, the Defense Ministry said the sensitive program is not only getting assistance from the U.S. The ministry denied a report that North Korea had discussed helping Taiwan with the submarines. It said there has never been, there is not now, and will never be any contact with Pyongyang over the issue. Officials said important countries in Europe and the U.S. are providing all help without going into details. Turkey says it strongly rejects claims by Athens that Ankara pushed migrant boats into Greek waters. Turkish Deputy Interior Minister Ismail Katakali says Greece distorted the events and is telling lies. In a statement, Katakali said Athens pushed back 231 migrants in 7 incidents on Friday. He added Ankara rescued the asylum seekers. Katakali said it is a crime against humanity to slander the Turkish Coast Guard that saves people. The NATO allies disagree on multiple issues, including energy resources in the Mediterranean and the refugee crisis. In Egypt, all the ships stranded at Suez Canal for more than 10 days will eventually pass through the water body today. Suez Authority Chairman Osama Rabi said these include 61 cargo ships and 422 freighters. He added a total of 80 ships with a gross tonnage of 4.7 million passed through the waterway on Friday. Meanwhile, the vessel that caused the blockage is being investigated at the Great Bitter Lake, which is part of the canal. The Egyptian government says Ever Given will now not be released until the compensation is settled. More news stories coming up after the short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. In Algeria, thousands of people took to the streets of the capital, Algiers, to demonstrate against the political and military elite. Riot police have not stopped the protests but maintain a heavy street presence. The protests mark a resumption of the massive street movement Hirak. Demonstrators call for the old political establishment to depart and the army to quit politics. The movement had suspended its weekly marches a year ago because of the COVID-19 pandemic. In Somalia, the army says Al-Shabaab militants have killed several soldiers in attacks on 2 bases in the southwest of Mogadishu. An officer said the army sent reinforcements from other stations and a number of attackers were killed in the ensuing fight. He said the military has regained control of the bases and the surrounding areas. The army is now pursuing the militants in the surrounding jungle. Al-Shabaab has accepted responsibility for the attacks. The terrorist outfit claimed it also burned 3 military vehicles and took 2 of them. A British man has killed one of Europe's highest skyscrapers in Barcelona without any ropes or safety measures. George King took his life in his hands and free climbed the Melia Barcelona Sky Hotel in about 20 minutes. The 21-year-old Briton made his way to the top of the 381-feet hotel in the Spanish city. As he was coming down, he was arrested by the Catalan Regional Police and now faces a fine. King says when he was at the top, he felt like being in another dimension and his head was still in the clouds. He first climbed UK's highest tower, the Shard, which is over 1,000 feet tall in 2019. King has also climbed the 474 feet high Akbar Tower in Barcelona. British skateboard prodigy Sky Brown says she has fully recovered from her life-threatening fall last May. The 12-year-old plans to broaden her horizons by adding surfing to her Olympic schedule. This report has the details.
A horrible accident while skating is enough to make most people think twice about continuing the sport. But Sky Brown remains undeterred and is working hard towards her goal. She suffered skull fractures and a broken wrist after she fell from a half-pipe in South California. Brown says the experience has only added fuel to her considerable fire.
Going higher now, I learned some new tricks, and I can't wait. It's going to be really cool, and I think all the girls are getting better too, so now we just have a better show.
Brown has excelled on both boards from an early age and would be a formidable dual-threat Olympian. Like every athlete, Brown had to cope with the disappointment of the one-year delay of the Tokyo Games.
Well, at first, when I heard the Olympics, was delayed, I was sad. I thought my dreams were, gone. Like, I couldn't be in the Olympics anymore, and I felt sad. But then I realized it was just delayed, and, we just get more time to get better, and I got to spend time with my family.
Through her fall and recovery, Brown has remained upbeat and focused on inspiring others, especially other aspiring female athletes.
In China, a furniture designer has depicted former U.S. President Donald Trump in a manner most probably never thought of before. Hong Junchi carved Buddha statues of Trump that have gone viral nationwide and even abroad. More in this report.
Former U.S. President Donald Trump was anything but a monk, but one can still imagine him as such. So a Chinese designer was inspired by the potential contrast provided by the true extremisms of Buddhism and a former leader known for his sharp outbursts. Hong Junchi made 2 white ceramic statues of a pint-sized version of a meditating Trump as a fun project. Little did he know, their demand and hype would surge so much that he would end up opening a workshop to produce more such statues.
This process is actually like this, because his image and the image of meditation are 2 extremes. Meditation is a look within oneself, where you let go, where you don't fight for fame and fortune. So the image of the statue and his current situation are 2 extremes. This is a more peaceful and quiet image.
For several months, Hong worked with his sculptor friend to refine the design. Hong is unaware if Trump has seen pictures of the statue, but he is very eager to find out how the former US president would react on seeing it and, if possible, wants to gift him one.
I'm very curious how he would react to this statue. But I heard a friend say that based on Trump's character, if it is something that makes him famous, then he'll like it. Not to mention that this is something quite positive.
Hong has so far sold around 200 statues, which come in 2 sizes and take around 10 days to make. A 16 centimeters model is priced at $150, while a bigger one of 46 centimeters is worth $347.
In South Korea, a young couple accidentally vandalized a painting worth about $500,000 at a gallery in Seoul. CCTV cameras captured them picking up and daubing paint over the artwork. Exhibition head Kang Wook says the couple thought they were allowed to paint over the graffiti as participatory art. Police arrested them after reviewing the CCTV footage, but they were released later on. The gallery did not press charges against them, considering their act to be an innocent mistake. Kang says discussions with the artist are underway on how to restore the wall art. After the incident, the gallery has put up a wire fence and additional signs saying "Do not touch." In golf, Thailand's Patty Tewat maintains her lead at the ANA Inspiration in Rancho Mirage, California. Tewat is up by 1 stroke at the halfway point of the LPGA season's first major. She recorded an eagle while shooting a 3 under par 69 in the second round, leaving her at 9 under par 135. China's Shanshan Fan is second place and also carded a 69. Fang was 1 under for the round prior to notching birdies on the 17th and 18th holes. Thailand's Moria Jutanugarn holds third place at 7 under after a 69. She had 4 birdies prior to making her lone bogey of the day at number 16. In the National Basketball Association, Pascal Siakam's season-high 36 points have led Toronto Raptors to dominate Golden State Warriors 130-77. The win marks only the second for Toronto in the last 15 encounters. The margin of defeat comes as the third worst for Warriors in history. They lost for the 6th time in their past 7 games, as Stephen Curry and Draymond Green are sitting out. Meanwhile, Boston Celtics beat Houston Rockets by 118-102 to snap a 2-game losing streak. Jason Tatum scored 26 points for the Celtics, followed by Jaylen Brown adding 22 with 11 rebounds. In other fixtures, Dallas Mavericks pulled off a 99-86-point win over the New York Knicks, while Memphis Grizzlies downed the visiting Minnesota Timberwolves 120-108 points. Now it's time to have a look at the weather update across the globe. For the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at indus.news.